Why pain is the teacher you never wanted, but needed. Pain is something we all fear. We avoid it, resist it, and when it finds us, we ask, why me? We see it as a curse, something that should not be part of our lives. But what if pain is not the enemy? What if pain is the greatest teacher we never wanted but desperately needed? What if the suffering we try so hard to escape is the very thing shaping us into something greater? This is the lesson Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, tried to teach us. That pain is not the problem our attachment to what we think life should be is. Epictetus was not born into wealth or privilege. He was born a slave. He had no control over his circumstances, no power to dictate his own fate. And yet, despite a life filled with pain, he became one of the greatest philosophers of all time. Why? Because he understood something that most people never do. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. You will experience loss. You will experience failure. You will experience betrayal, rejection, uncertainty, and hardship. These things are part of life. To resist them, to fight against them, is to fight against reality itself. And that is why so many people suffer, not because life is cruel, but because they refuse to accept that pain is part of the deal. Think about it. How much of your suffering comes from the pain itself, and how much comes from your refusal to accept it? When you lose something, it hurts. But what makes it unbearable is the thought that you shouldn't have lost it, that life should have gone differently, that things should not be this way. But who told you that? Where is it written that life must go as you expect? That you are entitled to a life free from suffering? The truth is, we suffer not because of pain, but because we cling to comfort, to certainty, to the illusion that we can control everything. And when life does what it always does, when it changes, when it takes things from us, when it forces us into situations we never wanted, we break. Not because life is unfair, but because we were never taught how to let go.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Epictetus understood this better than anyone. He lived a life filled with suffering, yet he never saw himself as a victim. He did not waste his energy asking, "Why me?" He asked, "What can I learn from this?" That is the shift that changes everything. Because the moment you stop resisting pain, the moment you stop trying to control what is beyond your power, you gain something far greater: freedom. Look at your own life. How much of your suffering comes not from the pain itself, but from your refusal to accept it? When someone betrays you, the pain is real. But what makes it unbearable is the belief that they should not have done it. When you fail, the disappointment is real. But what makes it devastating is the belief that you should not have failed. We spend so much time fighting reality, arguing with what already is, refusing to accept the truth that pain is part of existence. And because of that, we suffer more than we need to. So ask yourself, what are you clinging to? What pain in your life is being amplified because you refuse to accept it? Is it a past relationship, a career that didn't go as planned, a version of your life that no longer exists? And what would happen if, instead of resisting, you accepted? If, instead of trying to force life to fit your expectations, you adapted to reality as it is? Would you still suffer, or would you finally be free? Because here's the truth: life will hurt. People will leave. Plans will fail. Dreams will shatter. But your suffering is not in the event itself, it is in your refusal to let go. And once you understand this, Once you stop clinging to the illusion of control, pain loses its power over you. It does not disappear, but it no longer breaks you. It becomes what it was always meant to be: a teacher, a guide, a force that shapes you into something stronger. That is what Epictetus understood. That is the lesson that can change everything. The fire that forges you, why resisting pain makes it worse. Pain is like fire. It burns, it consumes, and if we fear it, if we run from it, it only grows stronger. But fire is not just destruction. Fire is transformation. It is the force that purifies metal, turning raw ore into something unbreakable. And just like metal in the forge, we are shaped by what we endure. The question is not whether you will face pain, the question is whether you will let it destroy you or forge you into something greater. Most people resist pain as if they have a choice. They fight against it, reject it, pretend it doesn't exist. But resisting pain is like standing in the ocean and trying to push back the waves. No matter how strong you are, no matter how much you fight, the waves will keep coming. And the more you resist, the more exhausted you become, until eventually the tide drags you under. But what if, instead of fighting the waves, you learn to float? What if, instead of resisting pain, you allowed it to move through you, to teach you, to refine you? Epictetus understood this better than anyone. He lived a life filled with suffering, yet he never saw himself as a victim. He did not waste his energy asking, "Why me?" He asked, "What can I learn from this?" That is the shift that changes everything. Because the moment you stop resisting pain, the moment you stop trying to control what is beyond your power, you gain something far greater: freedom. Look at your own life. How much of your suffering comes not from the pain itself, but from your refusal to accept it? When someone betrays you, the pain is real. But what makes it unbearable is the belief that they should not have done it. When you fail, the disappointment is real. But what makes it devastating is the belief that you should not have failed. We spend so much time fighting reality, arguing with what already is, refusing to accept the truth that pain is part of existence. And because of that, we suffer more than we need to. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is information. It is reality speaking to you, showing you what is weak, what must change, what must be let go of. If you touch fire, it burns you not because the fire is cruel, but because it is teaching you a lesson. Do not touch what will destroy you. But what do most people do? They keep touching the fire, expecting it not to burn. They stay in relationships that damage them, hoping the other person will change. They hold on to the past, wishing it could be different. They refuse to let go of the things that are already gone, and they wonder why they are in pain. But what if, instead of fearing pain, you listen to it? What if, instead of running from discomfort, you asked, "What is this trying to teach me?" Because pain is not random, it is not meaningless. It is the universe showing you where you are weak, where you are clinging to illusions, where you must grow. And the people who understand this, the people who embrace pain, who allow it to shape them instead of resisting it, those are the people who become unbreakable. Think about the strongest, most resilient people you know. Do you think they avoided pain? Or do you think they walked through it, allowed it to harden them, allowed it to teach them? Strength is not given. It is earned. It is built through suffering, through endurance, through the willingness to face what others run from. And that is why most people never become strong, because they avoid the very thing that would make them so. So ask yourself, what pain are you resisting right now? What truth are you refusing to face? What part of you must be broken down so that something greater can be built in its place? Because make no mistake, pain will find you. The only question is whether you will let it destroy you or transform you. The fire is here. You are in it. Will you fight it, resist it, try to escape it? Or will you stand in it, embrace it, and allow it to forge you into something unbreakable? The choice is yours. But remember this, the strongest steel is made in the hottest fire. And the strongest people are made in the hardest moments. The illusion of control, why letting go is the key to inner peace. Most of our pain does not come from the events themselves, but from our desperate attempt to control what was never ours to control in the first place. We want certainty in an uncertain world. We want permanence in a life that is constantly changing. We cling to people, to plans, to identities, believing that if we just hold on tightly enough, we can keep things the way we want them to be. But life does not work that way. The more we try to control it, the more we suffer, because control is an illusion. It has always been an illusion, and the sooner we accept this, the freer we become. Epictetus taught that suffering is not caused by external events, but by our judgments about them. We do not suffer because we fail, we suffer because we believe failure should not have happened. We do not suffer because people leave us, we suffer because we believe they should have stayed. The event itself is neutral. It is our attachment, our insistence that life must go a certain way, that creates suffering. And this is where most people remain stuck, not in their circumstances, but in their refusal to accept what is. Imagine holding onto a rope that is being pulled away from you. The harder you grip, the more it burns, the more it tears at your hands. But the moment you let go, the pain stops. The rope is still gone, but you are no longer suffering. This is the power of surrender, not as weakness, not as giving up, but as the highest form of wisdom. Because to let go is not to lose, it is to free yourself from the unnecessary suffering that comes from trying to control what was never yours to control. Look at your own life. What are you still clinging to? A past that no longer exists? A version of yourself that you have outgrown? A relationship, a dream, an expectation that reality has already taken away? And what has this clinging done for you, other than bring you more pain? What if, instead of resisting, you accepted? What if, instead of trying to force life to match your expectations, you adapted to life as it is? Would you still suffer? Or would you finally be at peace? Because here is the truth. Life is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to be navigated. You cannot stop the waves, but you can learn to ride them. You cannot prevent loss, but you can decide how you respond to it. You cannot force people to stay, but you can choose to love them fully while they are here and let them go when it is time. This is the wisdom that sets people free, not the power to control life, but the power to surrender to it without fear. And this is what separates those who suffer endlessly from those who find peace, no matter what happens to them. The people who suffer the most are not the ones who experience the most pain, they are the ones who refuse to let go. They are the ones who try to force life to conform to their desires instead of adapting to reality. But the ones who find peace, who move through life with grace, who remain unshaken no matter what happens, these are the ones who have learned the secret. You do not have to control everything to be free. You only have to control yourself. So ask yourself, what are you still trying to control? What rope are you gripping so tightly that it is burning you? And what would happen if, just for a moment, you loosened your grip? Would your world collapse? Or would you finally be free? Because freedom is not found in control. It is found in surrender. And once you understand this, once you fully embrace it, life will never be able to break you again. The unshakable mind, how pain becomes power when you stop resisting. There comes a moment in life when you realize that pain is not here to destroy you, it is here to awaken you. That every hardship, every loss, every disappointment you've endured was not an attack from the universe, but a lesson, a test. A question being asked of you: will you let this break you, or will you use it to become something greater? This is the moment when everything changes. When suffering is no longer something you fear, but something you understand. When pain is no longer your enemy, but your greatest source of power. The people who become unshakable are not the ones who avoid suffering. They are the ones who face it fully, who allow it to shape them without resistance. They do not waste time asking why life is unfair, but they do not cling to what has already been taken from them. They do not live in the past, replaying their losses over and over, hoping to change what cannot be changed. Instead, they accept, they adapt, they take the pain, the disappointment, the heartbreak, and they turn it into strength, into wisdom, into a force that makes them unstoppable. Epictetus understood this better than anyone. He had everything taken from him: his freedom, his body, his ability to determine his own fate. But instead of seeing himself as a victim, instead of drowning in self-pity, he chose a different path. He realized that while the world could take everything from him, it could never take his mind. It could never take his ability to choose how he responded to suffering. And in that realization, he became free. Because when you stop resisting pain, when you stop believing that life owes you comfort, when you stop expecting the world to be something it is not, you become untouchable. Nothing can break you, because you no longer fear being broken. Think about your own life. How much energy have you wasted fighting against things you cannot change? How much suffering have you created for yourself by refusing to accept what already is? And what would happen if, instead of resisting, you embraced? If, instead of trying to escape pain, you leaned into it, allowed it to teach you, allowed it to turn you into something stronger? Would you still suffer, or would you finally be free? Because that is the ultimate lesson: pain is inevitable. But suffering is a choice. A choice we make every time we cling instead of letting go, every time we resist instead of accepting, every time we allow our circumstances to control us instead of mastering ourselves. And once you understand this, once you truly absorb it, the world will never have power over you again. So the question now is simple: will you keep resisting, keep clinging, keep suffering for no reason? Or will you finally let go? Will you finally allow pain to be what it was always meant to be, not a curse, but a teacher? Not a punishment, but a path. Not something to fear, but something to master. Because the moment you do, the moment you stop fighting reality and start working with it, you will realize something incredible: you were never weak. You were only afraid. And once the fear is gone, once you embrace everything life gives you without resistance, you will become something unstoppable. But this is what Epictetus knew. This is what the strongest people in history have always understood. And this is the truth that will set you free.